Harvest, I want to let you in on a conversation I've been having with Shamara Jansen. She's with me, and you probably recognize her. She's been on the worship team for the last several months, and I'm sure you've been blessed by her ministry. Um, she came to my office, and she wanted to talk about some of the tensions that were going on in our country that's just kind of roiled up from George Floyd's death and then the protests. And you basically came in and said, is there more that we can do as a church? Can you help me? And from that conversation, I suggested, well, let's get before a camera and let's just talk.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's just talk, because I think what I would want from this, I would want our people to have compassion and understanding about what's going on. Hopefully to get us to then do something and allow this church to be a place that is open and welcoming to all nations, all people. Certainly that's the heart of God. Ephesians chapter 2, the breaking down of those barriers between Jew and Gentile, but God cares about all people. So I know that we would want that, but maybe there's barriers that we can't see, right? Mm-hmm. And then beyond our church, then into our community. So the way I want to start it is, Shamara, we got to get to know you. Yeah. I want them to get to know you. Okay. And maybe you could tell us about how long you've been at Harvest, maybe your immediate family, about them, and then your upbringing. Okay. Just to bring us to this point.
Okay, so I'm Shamara, and my husband and I started coming to Harvest last June. My husband's name is Luke. We've been married for 6 years. We have 2 kids. I have a 3-year-old, Elena, and
which
a 1-year-old.
I met on Sunday.
They're crazy.
I love it.
I also have a 1-year-old, and his name is Silas. And yeah, we live in Cherry Valley. I moved to the Rockford area when I was in 5th grade. I'm pretty familiar with the area. I met my husband when I was in high school, and we've been together ever since. So about my family, my upbringing a little bit. So my mom, just because we're going to talk about race, I think this is important. My mom is white. My biological dad is black. But I was raised by my stepdad, who is also white. So I was raised in a predominantly white family. My older brother is also mixed, but he has a different dad. And then my 2 younger siblings are red hair, blue eyes. They are
light skin.
Very light skin. We don't look anything alike. We have to convince people that we're related. So, so I grew up in a very white family. Yeah. And that sort of, shaped the way I viewed the world. I definitely thought growing up that I wasn't really black. I'm definitely more white. That's how I identified myself. And it's just recently that I've started to sort of research more into the black culture and the black community and sort of get in touch with that part of my history. And so that's what brings me here today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you were telling me too that there were times when you would straighten your hair.
Yeah.
And try to be as white as possible. Mm-hmm. Why?
Yeah. I just felt like I really didn't fit in my family. I would say it kind of like at a peak, especially when my older brother went off to college. So it was just like me and my 2 white siblings and my 2 white parents. And people would just be like, I don't know, are you the babysitter? How are you involved in this? And so I would straighten my hair every single day. I mean, I fried my hair because I just wanted to be accepted as that was my family, and I wanted to be more white, if you would.
Was that an internal struggle, or do you feel like there was outside pressure put upon you to do that?
Yeah, I feel like also, it was an internal thing for sure, just like the way I perceived it, but I didn't know anybody else who was black, so I couldn't relate to them that way. My mom didn't know how to take care of my hair or anything about my culture, so it was just like a big fight, and it was easier just to straighten it because she thought well, I know how to deal with straight hair, so we'll just do that instead. And so hair in the black community is a pretty big thing, and so for me to not be able to take care of my hair was very polarizing for me. So it was interesting growing up.
Yeah. What about any personal struggles in all of this that you could share with us? You've identified some,
yeah.
right?
Those were more I'd say under the table things that you don't really classify as racism. But I feel like in the only things that I have experienced myself has been like in healthcare, really, where people just make snap just judgments about me. Also in education a little bit. When you read my name, Shamara, before it was Shamara Hamilton, and they read that, they're like, okay, who are you? And then they talk to me on the phone and they're like, oh, you don't sound black.
Yeah, they say that.
You're different. You're very well spoken. I get that a lot.
Great.
Those are just different things that make me go, I don't know. You're saying that like it's a compliment that I don't sound black, but I don't know what that really means. Or in healthcare, when I was pregnant with my son and the SNAP decision, when I first got in there, people looked at me and the nurses decided that I was fine to sit in a triage room, even though my OB had told me I needed to go straight into a room and get monitored. And I was fine to sit there, and other people in the same room were taken care of before me, even though they came in after me. And then as soon as they found out and they took my intake questions and they found out I had insurance and I had a husband, then all of a sudden I have a private room and I'm getting monitored right away. But it took an hour to get to that point. And it just makes me wonder, what if I didn't have insurance? What if I didn't have a husband? Would that mean that I would have continued to get subpar care just because of the color of my skin or because of a judgment that you've laid upon me?
Right.
So it makes me start questioning what's happening in the systems in America.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha. What about, so I'm a white male and there's a few people like me in our church.
Yeah.
What would you want us to know? What would you want us to understand and feel, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, right now everything's really tense and it's
It is.
easy to pick a side and stay in that camp. And I think probably the biggest thing that anyone can do who's kind of confused during this time is to really just open your ears and start to have some empathy. I think probably my motto in life is just to believe people. I mean, they are saying a story and they're saying their experiences, and I think it's really important that you listen to those stories because they have merit. And so if someone's saying, I'm feeling oppressed and I'm feeling that I'm targeted racially, why is that? And what can I do to help shoulder that burden for you so that you're not the only one struggling under it? And
So whether I believe that or not,
yeah,
to listen,
to
to
just
understand, to draw out.
that empathy is like such a big thing
Yeah, it
because you can spend your entire day, your entire life debating whether or not it exists, but for some person it does exist. For some person they've experienced it.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for you? And I think in our culture, I mean, I told you I grew up in a white family. I feel like I have a lot of privilege that comes with growing up in a white family. Like I talk white. Apparently that's a privilege. But it's about taking my privilege and sort of just like stripping it down to say, how can I use what God has given me, my place in life, to help you where you're at, so that you don't feel like you're ostracized. And I feel like as a church, it's something that we have to do very intentionally, because if you look around and everybody in your core group is of the same mind and the same skin color and the same everything, then maybe you're never going to be experience or hear about anything on the other side of that. And it's not going to happen by itself. It has to be an intentional thing. So if you want to know what other people think and feel, you're going to have to intentionally go to other people and find out what their life story is.
Well, and I think too, if you have a perception on what's going on that's different than mine, I need to, out of love, prefer you above me. Like you before me, and let me hear it. Let me understand it. Let me empathize with you so that I can watch out and care and think about it differently. And I think it's easy to go to our own comfortable camps where it's what we have known.
And I feel like even in studies we've found out that like people fear what they don't know. And so your automatic preference to something that is outside of your knowledge is going to be fear or distrust. And so to strip that down, to sort of take that away, you have to like go to someone so that you can be like, I know you, I trust you, I can hear you. And if you're never doing that, then your automatic go-to is going to be, I don't know you, so I can't understand you. And so it's good to just pause and just listen so that you can empathize and really the people who are saying something different than you. It's good to listen to. I mean, you don't have to agree with everybody
Right.
saying everything different than you, but it's good to listen, like the why do you feel this way?
Yeah.
So I can hear you and I can understand it.
Yeah. So, Shamara, moving beyond empathy and understanding, what can we do practically? How do we move into practice? What would examples you would give us?
So, like I was talking about, it's all about being intentional. Things like this aren't just gonna happen to
No.
you. So, maybe there's a stay-at-home mom and she's like, how can I get involved? I mean, I'm just with my kids all day. Maybe that means that you're going to the library, like Montague Library, that branch. You don't normally go to that side of
Right.
town, but that's what you're doing because you want to give your kids a diverse
Okay.
playmates, diverse classmates. Maybe you're the nurse that I was talking about at the hospital and your snap judgment of me was low income and on Medicaid. Maybe instead you are practicing having positive judgments of people immediately.
Okay.
Like you just wait to get to know them. And maybe that means that when you do come up with a patient who is on Medicaid and is a single mom, you still give them the best quality care
Compassion,
because
yeah.
they still deserve it.
Yeah. Image of God.
Yeah, and it's about breaking down, like, I know we get into our zones of like, I deal with these people all the time and they always give me, it's easy to get into the they, or I know this type of person, and just let everybody be their
Right.
own individual person and give them the best that you can. And everything that you do it as if you're doing it for the glory of God.
Yeah.
So if you're a doctor, if you're a police officer, if you're a firefighter, whatever you're doing, when you go into it, you're thinking, how can I serve you? How can I serve you the best that I can? And how can I assume the best about you instead of assuming anything about the culture or what I make assumptions based on how you look?
Well, we do tend toward comfort. We
Yeah.
do tend toward people that believe the same things as I do, because it becomes kind of tense if we don't, right? But you're advocating that we need to push into those arenas so that we can open our mind to other people's experience, so we can have compassion, understanding, especially as it relates to race issues.
Yeah. And especially, I just want to talk to the moms out there because I know what it's like. We're raising a generation, so it'll hopefully be different. So they'll
Amen.
always be this way. They'll always see the human outside of the race or the baggage that's attached to the way that people look. And so, like, moms and dads, like, you're raising the next generation, so hopefully they don't have to worry about the stigma that's attached to the color of person's skin. And we're just thinking, you're a creation of God, and I want to love you because of who you are, as opposed to, well, you know, those type of people.
Those type of people.
Yeah, which, I mean, is very present in our modern day society, but we want to push past that. So
let's talk about our church,
Okay.
finally. Okay. Is there any hesitation or hesitancy in coming into our church, knowing it's probably predominantly white?
I think as a whole, that's not really something that played a part in us choosing that we wanted
Yeah.
to call Harvest our home. And recently, I have been pretty vocal about the current manners, so I wonder. In the back of my mind, it's always there when I park for our drive-in services. I
Right.
think maybe someone saw something on Facebook or they heard me say something and they disagree, and now they're a little more standoffish
Right.
towards me.
Because you've been stirring on
Yeah.
this subject, and you've
And
been a
I-
little vocal
Yes.
about it.
And I realize it's so uncomfortable. Like, nobody wants to take the time to examine the darkest parts of, or their biases, or their, how they might be part of the problem. I know nobody wants to do that. And it's a hard conversation. And I know that sometimes that can cause like ill will or ill feelings towards another person. So recently it's been like, oh, I don't know what people think
Yeah.
about me. I don't know if they support me. But I feel like a lot of people have come out of the woodwork that I haven't talked to a lot, just to say, hey, thanks for posting about this. Thanks for
Yeah.
talking about it. So if maybe you're a person who's like, hey, I don't really agree with everything you're saying. Like, I love face-to-face conversations.
You're okay
and,
with
like,
that?
Yeah, I'm fine with actually talking so that you can hear like my heart behind it. And I hope
Good.
maybe this
Yeah.
sort of helped you understand where I'm coming from. And that race is a big deal, culture is a big deal, and it's a part of a person, but that doesn't have to be the only thing that we see, and it doesn't have to be a negative connotation either.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. You know, we've been talking about 1 Corinthians 13, about love, and certainly this plays into it because as we are loving one another in our church, we need to understand each other and to move into those arenas. And I would just encourage Harvest, I just encourage us having these conversations, not just with Shamara, I'm sure she would welcome that, but there are other people of color that would, move toward people of different ideologies that you can talk to, and talk about issues that are important. But let's model what we want to see out in our culture, in the church. So anyway, we'll talk about it more, hopefully. But God bless you all.